But that's what I'm working for. I mean, I wake up, I'm so blessed that I wake up in the mornings, every spring morning just about, and I'm listening to quail calling. October mornings now at daylight, I'm hearing quail. In December, it's ducks coming in. Man, I mean, it's hard to describe how good. But these kids, we have special regulations. Kyker Bottoms is such a small little area. We were loved to death, and people came from everywhere. We have bird watchers. We got in, and then, of course, there's not many places to rabbit and quail hunt. Guess where they come? Kyker. It's 650 acres, so we had, I was checking 92 hunters in 2 weeks of time. It was just covered with people, way too many people, and they were not having a good time. So we changed the regulations where you had to bring a kid with you. So you can hunt. There's a 2-week period you can quail and rabbit hunt, but you have to have a kid with you 6 through 16. For one thing, it gets the kids outside, and it's decreased some of that pressure, and everybody's, I think, it's done really, really well. If it's a larger area, we probably wouldn't have to do that, but it's a really small area. But seeing these kids smiling, that's what I'm working for. Back to native grasses, we've seen especially these big tall mixes. We're learning over time. We're actually learning from our forefathers on fire. If the native people here, if you weren't a good game manager, you know what happened? You died. You starved. So you got good at managing game, and one of their most important tools was fire. So here we are, college educated, and we're learning from what the people did way, 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 way before us. So we're getting back to that. We're learning more and following the old ways, and fire is important. Back to the native grasses, one of the most important ones, you see the ones that's sticking up, there's broom sedge. This other is big blue stem and Indian grass that we planted. And you see in the winter it's all lodged over. Well, that quail habitat is no longer there. It's lodged. It's not what they need. It's not the right structure. So we're learning to use a lot of the things that are already in the seed point. The broom sedge, we didn't have to plant at all, and it's there. But the ones that we planted, if it's too thick, that's what you get, just lodged over, and you don't have quail habitat. Again, we already mentioned bicolor and some of these others. They start out good and then end up taking over the whole place. That's one of my problems, and that's what I spend so much time on, is trying to get rid of exotic species of plants and animals. Here's another one that's come into the picture, is wild boar. We've killed 155 wild hogs on that area, and it just takes more and more and more time away from actual management. And again, I have 4 areas and 1 guy. Here, we have lots and lots of exotic animals. Here's one that is a predator on my area. We'll go quick about that. I'm going to try to get it I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit. Structure I was talking about, not magic beans. We keep looking for this. If you see all the advertisement, you can buy this biologic or some magic quail that would seed in a bag and plant it, and you're going to have quail. No. The main thing is structure. And ragweed, it's, I'll disc places, and those native plants will come in, and everybody will drive in. Man, what'd you plant there? I want some of that seed. I went, it's ragweed. I went, oh, I don't want that. But ragweed is one of the most important plants for quail. It has the right structure, has seed, and it's got to have exposed soil around those plants. Kids can see that pretty quickly. Another thing we talk with kids about is the wetland. My house built in 1847, way up here on a hill, not down in the wetland, because what happens in a floodplain? I asked them, what happens in floodplain? It floods. So why in 1847 did they built a house way up here, get it? They didn't build it down there in the creek because what happened? It floods. So they understand it pretty quick, but we still end up putting things that they don't need to be. Tall fescue, Bermuda grass, all these other exotics we're talking about, herbicide is one of the only way to stop, to get rid of those. Bradford pears, could not, they're everywhere. They get spread like they're just everywhere. I'm fighting those constantly. here, you saw the kids. Here's an 87-year-old man on his last quail hunt, and that's what I mean, gives you pride. That dog hadn't been out of the pen in 5 years, and I was praying we got to find a covey for this man. He had an oxygen tank, and he looked like he stepped out of a 1950 J.C. Penney's. He had his old canvas. He pulled out this humpback 20-gauge Browning, and oh man! So we didn't hunt 15 minutes, and the dog was just locked up. I went, fantastic. If you look in the background, none of that where he's pointed is planted. It's been disc, burned, get rid of the exotics, and all that's come back on its own. The dog's pointed, and he's going pretty slow. I'm going, these are wild birds. You better get up there. And he's getting real slow, and then it just exploded right in his face. He's just standing there holding the gun. He never even shouldered his gun, but he looked at me with this grin and went, that's great. There's the broom sedge. We'll go through these real quick. Not only just quail and rabbits we're helping all kinds of other birds and animals. My neighbor, we're looking for a place. We're getting rid of all the fescue, and I'm doing all this. It's something like 15 small mammal species, really diverse, 10, 11 different frogs and toads, snakes, 200 species of birds. It's as diverse as you can get. Of course, I couldn't even find any fescue anymore because I've sprayed it all out, but I went to my neighbors and trapped, and I said, look at all the different small mammal species I found on our land versus your land, Chris. He goes, I'm good. I don't want them darn rats on my land anyway. So it's hard to make people understand that is part of the system. Shrikes up there is, if you look at quail and shrikes, one we hunt, one we don't, and you look at their populations, they're going exactly mimicking each other. Actually got to see that little bird thinks it's a hawk. It eats mice and different things. So if you get the habitat right, those guys will be back too. We had, just talking about the diversity, we had different groups of bird banders that came. They're banding songbirds all over, and they came to Kyker Bottoms. They were from West Tennessee. Not a slap on them or anything, but they went, gosh, this is most diverse. They got like 60, 70 species that day, and they put up mist nets, these little fine nets to catch the birds in and put bands on them. And we caught 6 quail that day in the net. He goes, we have never caught a quail in one of these. But anyway, pretty exciting. Snakes, some people, I don't like them, but they're part of the system. There's a research project with Maryville College, and they're doing these tin cover boards, and really diverse with snakes and herps. Some people say, yeah, but they do serve a function. And you'll notice in the background there's broom sedge. Other thing that attracts people now is butterflies. We have dragonflies and butterfly people. We have all these different groups that are interested in different things. And people want that mode uniform. They think a golf course is pretty. To me, that's pretty. The fall flowers, the butterflies, it's amazing what's there. People that just deer hunt thinking, hey, you cut a tree? That's crazy. I mean, don't you know that deer need trees? The deers like they like the early succession also. Oh, they don't do, it's not brain surgery. Anyway, that was for my guys, so. You got to get down on the quail's level. And, well, was he drunk or what? But no, I'm down there looking at the structure. What's in the seed bank, I've just mentioned to the fall wildflowers. It is amazing. None of this is planted. This is removing fescue with herbicides, disking and fire, and you get a beautiful place. Okay, what can we do? And one of them, you'll see there that we have 692,000 acres of forested land on TWRA lands. And if you live where I do, there's trees everywhere. People think that we need trees. We really don't. If you look at the national park, which I'm looking at, there's about 600,000 acres. The national forest is almost closed canopy forest. It's 600,000 acres. And if you go to the national park, everybody goes around Cage Cove, it's one of the very few openings in the entire park. So everybody sees the deer there and the bear there and the turkey there because it's the only opening in 600,000 acres. they don't realize that the whole rest of the park, and I worked in the park for a summer trapping bears, and you go into the rest of the park and the deer population is extremely low because it's closed canopy forest. So we have to have openings for everything, particularly quail, but also for deer and also for bears. A deer doesn't, you go, you can't kill an oak tree because they eat acorns in the fall. What do they eat in the summer? A deer can't shimmy up a 60-foot tree and eat the top out of it. It doesn't happen. So he has to have something to eat his entire life cycle. As hunters, I know we're under that white oak waiting for him to come by. And typically that's what everybody thinks about. But I have to think about his entire life cycle. And that is in the summer, he's got to be eating something that's down here. You can have two oak trees exactly side by side. They're exactly the same age. One's this big, one's this big. This one was never going to be a good producer. It's like having a bird dog that won't hunt, and this one will. So if you remove this smaller tree, this one grows faster, produces more acorns, better timber, and also produces habitat for quail. So that's good. So that's where we can be doing it. The other thing that's so good about us, we all buy a license, and it's important that we do it as economically feasible as we can. At Kyker and now at Foothills, loggers are paying us to produce habitat. So it used to be me out there circling a tree, trying to kill this tree, leave that tree. Now they're actually paying TWRA and producing the habitat. Now it's our responsibility to maintain it, and that takes herbicides, it takes fire, it takes people. Just a quick thing about some of the non-game species. Cerulean warbler is one that gets a lot of attention, and it's a species. I'm not just a hook and bullet guy, although that's my life. It's in my heart. But I'm also interested in all the other species. When I was a game warden in Carter County, I was a non-game guy. I've always interested in all the non-game animals as well. But here's cerulean warblers that are very important. But they fly to Central and South America. We don't have any control over Central and South America. Quail and grouse stay their entire life cycle right here in Tennessee. And what we do there, when we manage for them, we can really have an impact. We can do what best we can for them when they're here, but what happens when they go to Central and South America, we can't control that. So anyway, what I'm saying is non-game animals, all animals are important, but I think quail, their drastic decrease should get the same balance as some of the non-game species. There's a northern bobwhite, cerulean warbler. That looks worse to me. So there should be a lot of effort on that. Shrike, and there's again, we'll start getting quicker. You've already heard most of this. How do we do it? Here at Kyker's one of them. You see that bottom right picture? That was a Virginia pine stand. It's called a dog hair stand. It was not valued to wildlife in any way. It was cut over, burned, and 1 year later, that's what you got. Ragweed, quail habitat. It looks ugly at first. You see those pictures, and then 1 year, one growing season is that right down there. It ends up being beautiful. Go that. There's trees. This is what it did look like. Closed canopy forest. That's what it looked like now. You see trees. We still left lots of trees. Trees are, can be a part of that component. But if you're managing for early succession, why do we have closed canopy forests? So that's when we went to this technique of making savannas. And that's the latest buzzword. And that's what they look kind of ugly when you first do them. And that's what they look like now. If we can have quail with mountains in the background, we can have quail anywhere. Here's some of the quail birds. Broom sedge, we didn't plant. There it is in a cut over area. That's what you get. And look, that's got a pretty rainbow in it. Okay. What do we do about user groups? Of course, what I'm working for is I want people to be able to use it. So, but one thing that we have done on Kyker is we have restricted to where you have to have kids with you. The other things that we have to take into consideration is not just the hunting factor, but disturbance factor, especially when these like this past winter, and you get down to 14 degrees, And this is where research comes in, but you start flushing these birds. You're not shooting them, you're not doing anything, but you're flushing these birds at dark, and they're not able to regroup and get back as a covey, and it's 12 degrees that night, they're gone. So it's important, what I just read through research, below 70 degrees Fahrenheit, if a quail is by itself, it starts burning more energy to stay warm. 70. So that you can see how important it is when we get these, and we're lucky we don't have extreme winters here, but when it gets down there low, they've got to have a covey to stay warm. Everybody's looking for the magic bullet. We're going to release birds. We're going to release birds, release birds. I'm so not in favor of that. I can't back all this up, but when Europeans first hit the continent, the United States, we killed lots of native people with just mumps, common flus, common diseases that we'd had thousands of years to adapt to. The native people didn't, and they died by the thousands, if not millions. So what happens if you get a quail? It's a chicken. It looks like a quail, but it's been in a chicken house for the last 200 generations. It's made it, or it wouldn't be there. And you throw him out into the Indians or the native birds. What happens? I can't back all that up, but that's why we do restrict anybody releasing tame birds onto our WMAs, just for that factor. People think they're doing their, going to help, and actually they could be harming. Research, hopefully we're going to be producing more of that, and I try to stay up with it. UT is right in my backyard. I'm lucky, got a lot of contacts there, and they try to keep me up on the most up-to-date research that's going on, and that's what we have to do. Hopefully we're going to respond more. UT students, again, they come and volunteer. I've got 2 PhD students doing counts. I don't have the people or manpower, and they're able to come over and help do the monitoring of some of our quail areas. I don't know. It's not mowed. It's not a golf course, but I'm telling you, that's beautiful to me. And not only is it pretty, it's got quail birds in it. So it's flat out beautiful. All right. Any questions? Yes, sir.
See if I understand this. Your areas where you do the succession planting is out of the floodplain, correct?
That is a very good point. When we pick these areas, and one of these guys back here just kept focal areas, he kept saying, "You're going to say fecal. You're going to say fecal." I'm not. Yes, our focal areas, I think, should be out of these floodplains. For one thing, you're fighting succession. So the most fertile, moisture places are down in these wet areas. Fighting succession, you're chasing your tail constantly. So you want to get out of those wetter areas and up on the drier areas so that you can fight succession a little bit. You might have to burn every 3 to 5 years. Down in the bottoms, you're going to have to burn every year. And then it'll flood, and then it'll get behind. You can't have equipment down in there. It can go 5 years, and you've lost your habitat. Because I'm doing that on my waterfowl area. I'm trying to keep that out of trees and later succession for them, and it is a very, very hard job to do. So in my opinion, we've got to get out of those wet areas, get onto the drier sites. Where I have drier sites, I can maintain it with fire pretty easily. If it's down in a wet site, I cannot. It's going to have to take a dozer or herbicide, the only way you're going to be able to totally control that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
The PR guy, Bill, how do we get the public to grasp a hold of this and apply it on private property? We can do it on our WMAs, but how can we do it on private ground?
That is a challenge because if you do it and you realize the work it takes to keep things in early succession, it's going to be hard to do that on private land. Just in my opinion, our WMAs should be the best, and they should be an example of people. If you are interested in quail management, you come and look at this, and here's what we did, this. There is no recipe. Every area is going to be different on how it's managed, but they can come and look at that site and say, this is what I need to do on my land then. But it's an uphill battle trying, whereas quail management in the old days was kind of just a part of farming, of dirty farming. Now with clean farming and all that, it's an uphill battle. I don't know exactly how to answer that other than we need to have these areas that people can see what a quail even is. It's amazing. I go to school groups, said, how many in here seen a deer? Seen a bear? How many's ever heard a quail? Nobody raised their hand. So it is important that we do have these areas, and there's a place that people can come and go, wow, this looks good.
Well, I'm not sure if the commission picked up on this, but Bill has quite the sense of humor. And right before I sent him up here, I said, you have 10 minutes. He's like, don't worry, I only have 65 slides. And I thought he was kidding. Anyway, what I'm proud to announce, the National Bob White Conservation Initiative, NBCI, is this national movement to restore quail. They recently developed this award program in which they recognize the individuals that really make a difference in this world, in this world of trying to bring back quail. And this past year, Roger Applegate, our quail coordinator, submitted Bill Smith's name to receive the award, and lo and behold, he was awarded one of the first ever Firebird Awards from the National Bob White Conservation Initiative. And I'd like to represent that to Bill in front of the commission just to show you obviously seen how passionate he is about the work he does, and the fact that he is recognized nationally. I think Bill deserves a round of applause.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
He wants to step back.
I have a little extent of, this gentleman asked a question about how we get the word out. I would think that with these focus areas, part of the discussion with the focus area should be, basically it's a demonstration area. How are we going to work with Quail Forever or USDA or whoever? How are you going to get the word out? Because this investment we're making is not only to bring the quail back, but it's also to help people so they continue hunting and buying licenses and that kind of thing. How has that discussion taken place? Or if it hadn't, could it?
The first thing we want to do is get those focus areas up to par. And you hit the nail on the head. Kyker Bottoms, the reason Kyker Bottoms was not selected as a focus area, it's only 640 acres. And the surrounding land is either heavily forested or it's pasture land that is not going to be converted anytime soon. And so we chose that as a demonstration area because that 640 acres just is the model of what quail habitat looks like. The focus areas that we selected in each of the regions have the opportunity with the surrounding landscapes. They're more conducive to the public adopting that type of management on their lands, and they're more ripe to receive some of the Farm Bill programs, put some of their lands in CRP, so they're more eligible to do that. What the NBCI has determined is for these focus areas, you want to have at least 1,500 acres. And so Kyker is well below that. Some of the Wolf River, Bridgestone, Firestone, Bark Camp Barrens, and Lick Creek are the four focus areas. They're much larger than Kyker, and we have more opportunity to create that large landscape effect. But they're also in areas that we can get the public involved. But before we get that involved, we want to get those areas looking pretty much like Kyker is looking right now, because you can go there, like Bill said, anytime in the spring or in the fall, and there's birds flushing underfoot. So until we show the public, it's really difficult to get them to do it until they have that place that they can go and see exactly what needs to be done. But those 4 focus areas are well underway as far as getting those managers on board. We've just visited, or we have plans to visit the very last one, and they're working together to develop the plans to make them most effective on doing what they can do on their lands. Now, keep in mind, a forested area is much different than an area in West Tennessee, and there's different management tactics that can be done, but they're all working together now to create Kykers all over the place.
But then starting with the contiguous landowners out to a point, having invited to a public meeting to take a tour of the
Yes.
focus area.
Oh, that was already discussed as far as soon as we have a good area on our WMAs, to have field days to bring the public out, have representatives from NRCS as well as TWRA who could provide the technical advice for any landowner that's wishing to do the same thing. So those field days are planned, but we want to coordinate it, make sure that we have something great to show them before we invite the public out.
Right. Anybody else got a question? We have one of you got a question? 2 more what? Okay. Well, I got an additional item to add to the agenda, so go ahead and do it.
Before we get off Quail, if it pleases the commission, Andy Edwards from Quail Forever would like to come up and say something.
I promise I'll be brief, but as a point of reference, I was the second ever intern on Bill's Kyker Bottom's newly created waterfowl refuge as a waterfowl surveyor, I guess. I followed up Chris Graves, who has now replaced Billy Mincer at University of Tennessee in his teaching capabilities, and so, you know, it's a place near and dear to my heart, seeing kind of it come up from the ground up. But one thing that I wanted to make sure that the commission was aware of is, and Commissioner Cox, you bring about a great question of how we're going to take that and put it out on the landscape. But Quail Forever hopes to be an integral part of that. We're going to focus chapter development efforts around these WMAs. I've seen it already at Bart Camp Barons with Wes Winton. Came to a chapter meeting, asked for some help. We ended up buying him $1,000 worth of chemical to go out and kill sweet gum. He's putting it on the ground already. You know, it's in the system. We're working towards that. The Nashville chapter will work at Bridgestone Firestone. All of our chapters, you know, we have one fairly close to each of these areas, but what I think is important to take away, and I don't want to beat it over the head here, but Bill has done something for the quail world in Tennessee that I quite honestly was not sure we could do 3 or 4 years ago. He's re-energized a group of enthusiasts that we say we can do this now on small acreage. You know, we're not trying to talk 3,000 to 5,000 acres anymore. You know, yes, that's optimal, but we're talking, you know, 525, well, really 430 acres, you know, 400 and something acres that he's made a huge difference for quail on. Yeah, it's intensive, but it can be done. One guy and one technician, you know, that one manager and one technician are doing it right now. Of course, they've got equipment and that sort of thing, and that's great, but that has done more for re-energizing the folks in the quail world in Tennessee than I can tell you about. It's just been great. And we're proud of, you know, the work that's been done there. And I'm using it all the time. I'm promoting what can be done now. Look at Kyker Bottoms, and the managers are doing the same thing. I know Wes Winton was huge. He was so fired up. You could see that enthusiasm as he was presenting his case about Bart Camp Barons to our chapter in Southern Middle Tennessee. And so we're excited about that. We're going to keep those, you know, hopefully keep the wheels turning on that. Just as another thing that we're doing, and this is, I guess, my soapbox for just a second, we've got 2 Farm Bill biologists on the ground already, and I know you know about those people. But in a year and a half's time, they have put 12,000 acres on the ground for quail in West Tennessee, and that's through Farm Bill programs. These are new acres on the ground working towards quail. We've just hired our 3rd one, what will be in the Shortleaf Pine Initiative program on the Plateau. And it's our hope that by this time next year, we'll have a person on the ground, actually maybe based out of Greene County here, working in East Tennessee for quail. So it's it's something that you all have helped be the springboard for quail improvement in Tennessee, and we're happy to be partners with you.
Thank you. Is that all you got? We had an elk hunt a couple of weeks ago. We ended up last weekend, and I thought maybe you might give us a report on that.
What I'd like to do right now is, invite John Mike, who's our Region 4 wildlife manager, just to give that update. He was heavily involved with the elk hunt.
Hey, Bill, while he's coming up, I'd like to say, Mr. Smith there at Kyker Bottoms, to Ed and his people, if Bill and one assistant can do that kind of good for us on that many acres, I think that ought to set a standard what our cost per acre should be. I think Bill ought to get another round of applause for being able to manage that much with just him and one man.
Are you saying we've got too many people on some of the other areas?
I'm saying he's pretty efficient.
Well, if the truth be known, it's a region effort. My former position was WMA coordinator, and in Region 4, we try to work all of our guys together. Whenever Bill would burn, we'd send people down. Whenever he need equipment and help, other guys from other WMAs would come down and help, and it's a regional effort. But Bill headed all that up and has guided that effort. When I started supervising Bill, I had a head full of hair and a black beard. So, but anyhow, I'm going to be short because I know the evening's getting long. We had a good week. We, as y'all know, 5 adult permits were drawn, and then 1 juvenile. This year, we harvested 5 elk total, 4 of the adults, and then the juvenile harvested the biggest elk this year. The 5th person had an opportunity. He got elk fever, jerked the trigger, missed his elk. So he still had a good hunt. Just quick results. Jimmy Rogers harvested the first elk. That was on October the 20th. It was a 6x6. Field dress weight was 593 pounds. And one thing that was significant about this elk, it was one of the first elk that was of the original stocking. So this elk was a little over 13 years old. And that is Jimmy on that. I think we're short one picture. This, if I got this right, I think this was Shane Alexander. Don't hold me to the names on these guys in the pictures. I met all of them one time, and that was basically it. This is the permit that was sold. The guy is out of Missoula, Montana. 6x6, field dress 520 pounds. And I know this guy, Audie Shrimsher of Maryville, had his grandson with him. 5x5, field dress weight 462 pounds. And this is the juvenile, Robert Goodner out of Cleveland, Tennessee, 6x8, 646 pounds field dress. And the other elk that was harvested was Clay Oldham of Hartsville, a 5x5, field dress weight 465 pounds. So we had a good week. The weather cooperated. It got a little warm, but not too bad. Good cool mornings, good cool evenings, no rain, and I think everybody had a good time. So that's the end of my report.
Any
Y'all have
questions?
Any questions?
Thank you. You got
If I
something
may
else?
ask
Go
one
ahead.
more question. Right before the commission meeting started, one of the commissioners asked me to provide a quick update on some of those new bear zones that we opened up this year. And just real briefly, I believe we opened up 12 new counties to bear hunting, most of which were in the Ridge and Valley and up on the plateau. And just looking at the latest harvest results, so far we've killed 12 bears. There may be some tags that haven't come in, but in those new counties we killed 12 bears, 7 of which came from Fentress County. So that's a big hot spot around Big South Fork, and I think there's some mighty good bears coming from those areas if the stories of what I heard hold true. So.
With the addition of, going back to elk, with the addition of Tackett Creek and the population that we've got in the other areas, are you talking about one day or soon adding some more
We are currently
permits?
Steve Bennett, who is our elk restoration coordinator, contacted us about 6 months ago, and we're still looking into that process. Land Between the Lakes occasionally has excess elk that they need to get rid of, and we're currently looking into possibly getting more elk to move. Obviously, with CWD concerns, there's all that paperwork that we have to go through, but it is something we're currently exploring.
Well, that's good news, but I was asking about permits.
Oh, I'm sorry. With the population kind of, it hasn't grown by leaps and bounds. So until we see another large leap, we're probably not going to recommend too many more permits, if any at all. We're still believing the population estimate to be somewhere between 400 and 500 animals, and it's been there for the last couple of years.
But adding Tackett Creek adds a whole new hunting area, doesn't it?
It adds a whole new hunting area, but it may not have done anything for the population estimate. And until can you rephrase your question again?
I want to know with the addition of Tackett Creek, and I know there are elk there, whether they're come from our release or Kentucky, that opens up several thousand more acres that we could add hunting permits, so we could go from 5 or 6 to 10 and add some people in that area.
That will be looked at. We're going to conduct our elk survey again beginning this December. So in about a month and a half, we're going to do that again. And if it's possible to increase the number of tags, we will absolutely look into that. But with the new areas, yes, that is something that can be considered.
Right.
And
okay.
we'll obviously get with the Region 4 biologists to get their opinion on it.
Anybody else have a question or comment?
Chief Ratchak, you said you knew it was 13 years old. I was looking, is it tagged or was it radio called? What was it? How'd you know that it was one of the original? It had an ear tag. Okay.
It wasn't this one. That was the
First picture. Yes. Oh, I thought it was this one.
That one right there is the
Okay.
original stock.
How old do they get?
that's very old.
Pretty old, right?
Yes. Actually, when they hit their prime, anywhere from 6 to 9 years of age, they become the herd bull, and then they kind of lower in status, and they're on the decline after that because they get their butt kicked too much.
Anybody else? Mr. Chairman, that's all we've got.
Thank you.
It's not very often that the commission gets the chance to recognize a person, and the person that we're fixing to recognize is someone that this commission and past commissions has a lot of respect for and appreciates her opinion on things. And sometimes we pick at him about his name a little bit. We call him Ron Crabtree. But Ron, if you'd come forward, I'd like to read something for you, my friend. Ron, this is a resolution that all the commission, we all felt unanimous about this. And I'd like to read it to you. And it took me 12 years to graduate, and I finally got out of 3rd grade, so be patient with me here. You understand?
I'm not sure I can stand this.
Okay.
Because I get nervous when
All
I
right.
start doing something like this.
You should be. It says, whereas Ron Crabtree is a major voice for the state game bird, the bobwhite quail, in his home state of Tennessee. And whereas Ron Crabtree has attended most meetings of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission over the past 12 years. And whereas Ron Crabtree has been a longtime prominent supporter of the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency and its efforts to manage and improve habitat for bobwhite quail in our great state. And whereas Ron Crabtree has raised a great awareness of the role that TWRA plays in managing all of the state's fish and wildlife to the general public, and whereas Ron Crabtree has also supported the efforts to help returning members of the armed services through a fly fishing program called Operation Healing Waters, and whereas Ron Crabtree has been selected by Field and Stream magazine as one of the country's top 5 heroes of conservation, and whereas Ron Crabtree has recognized with a quote from Field and Stream editor-at-large Eddie Nickens saying, "There's not a single hunter or angler in Tennessee who does not owe Ron Crabtree a debt of gratitude."
And whereas Ron Crabtree currently serves as Vice President of Quail Forever organization in Tennessee, and whereas Ron Crabtree has and continues to be an iconic spokesman and ambassador for Tennessee, and now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission meeting on this 29th day of October at the General Morgan Inn in Greenville, Tennessee, do hereby express their individual and collective gratitude and respect for Ron Crabtree, and be it further resolved that this action shall be entered into the permanent records of the TFWC, and that this resolution shall serve as evidence that the Commission members, the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency staff, personally concur by expressing a collective and sincere appreciation to Ron Crabtree. Ron, we appreciate you and congratulations. Hold on. I'm going to ask him something that y'all know the answer to. Would you like to say a few words, Ryan? 5 minutes.
I wish that everybody in Tennessee could have experienced over the years what I have seeing these commissions in action. There's a great gap between reality and what they accomplish and sometimes what you read happens here. And any small success I have had has been because of this commission and past commissions' willingness to tolerate me. Now, if I could only be as good as they've said I am, I'd be a superhero too, Mr. Smith.
All right, Vice Chairman Cox, are you through with wildlife? Okay, are you through with wildlife?
Yes, sir.
All right, at this time, we'll take a 15-minute break.